Good morning or afternoon. My name is Dr. Cascad and I'm superintendent of SAU67, which includes the districts of Dunbarton and Bow. Here at SAU67, we have three mission statements, or they're statements that kind of direct our work as an SAU and direct our work as educators. And they are: care for each person every day, focus on learning, and teach to touch the future. What I'm going to do is explain what those three statements mean to me as the leader of SAU67. The first one is care for each person every day. And it's important that you look at each of the words in that statement. The first one is care. What does care mean? Well, the first thing that care means is that we have to get to know people as individuals. We have to know what their specific needs are, we have to know what their gifts are, and we have to know how they can contribute to our organization, to our community, and to life in general. So to care for them, we look at them as individuals and we see what they need to move forward. Caring may mean that we need to focus on basic needs. One of the statements I heard recently is we have to Maslow before we bloom. Maslow's hierarchy of needs talks about what individuals need before they can function. And it goes back to some base things like people need to be fed, they need to be cared for, they need to have physical safety. But it also means that people need emotional safety. They need to feel a sense of belonging. They need to feel that they are in a safe place emotionally so that they can fully express who they are as a person and be able to focus on learning. So, and blooms is the idea of the learning taxonomy, and I'll talk about that when we say focus on learning. But the first thing is caring. The other statement that kind of relates to that I have known since I first became an educator is a student doesn't care how much you as a teacher know until they know how much you care. And I think education is fundamentally a human endeavor, and it's based on relationship. And our relationships with students is so very much important to their ability to learn. But care for each person goes beyond that, because we not only care for our students, we care for other members of our community. We care for the adults who work here, we care for our parents, we care for the taxpayers who support us. And so the first part of our mission statement is care. We care for each person. That means that we do this on an individual basis. You know, another story that I've often told is there's a man walking along a beach, and there's all these starfish that are lying on the beach and they're dying. And he's picking up individual starfish and throwing them back in the ocean. And someone walks up to him and says, "What are you doing? There's no way you can save these starfish." He says, "Yeah, I can't save all of them, but I can save this one." And that's the point. You know, we may not be able to affect the whole world. We may not be able to affect all the students in our classroom, but if we focus on each individual person, we may be able to help that person as an individual. So it's care for each person. And then it's every day. We need to come in every day ready to give our best to our community and to our students. And there'll be times when we're down, there'll be times when we need a little bit of care by the people around us. But for the most part, every day we need to come in with an attitude of we're ready to serve others and we're ready to care for them as part of our mission statement. But caring isn't an end to itself. And I talked about it a little bit earlier. We care for people so that we can focus on learning. That's the primary focus, and that's the primary goal of education, is to help students learn. Notice it wasn't about teaching, it's about learning. And so the focus is on the learner, it's not on the teacher. It's not what we do up in front of the room or the great lessons that we design that students do. It's about the student and how they interact with that. The great American philosopher, maybe the only American philosopher of education, Dewey, talked about education was experience. And our role of educators is to provide experiences to our learners that help them have future experiences. And I know that's philosophic language, but basically we have to focus on how students experience the world around them so that they can have a better way to do that. And we can go into Bloom's taxonomy, or we can go into some other categories of learning, and we may start with low-level things like discrimination, meaning we can tell one thing from another and we can categorize things. But eventually we have to come up and we have to help students make relationships from there. We have to be able to set experiences so students can understand the world through principles, and then take those principles and apply them to new situations. So our test score is important? Yeah. And oftentimes at school we are measured by those test scores. Our assessment's important? Yes. We need to focus on how are our students learning. If they haven't learned, what can we do differently to help them learn more? But the most important thing is to focus in on learning and to make sure that our students are having those experiences that help them get to the next step. Vygotsky talked about the zone of proximal development. We want to challenge our students, but we can't challenge them so much that they get frustrated. We have to know where they are. We have to give them tasks and give them learning experiences that are just beyond their reach. We want to challenge them. We want to challenge them from their comfortable limits, but we don't want to challenge them so much that they're frustrated and they break down. So that's what we need to do by focus on learning. Know our individual students, be able to provide them learning experiences that help them grow as students. And the last one, Teach to Touch the Future, is a shout out to Kristen McAuliffe, who has roots in Bow and also in Concord. And it's about what our grand purpose is. Yes, we're going to get some rewards or we're going to get some results right away, but really we'll never know what we've done as educators until generations come, and the generation that we're teaching now, as my son says, picks the nursing homes we're in, but also builds the society that we want to live. So we can't rely on what we taught in the past. We can't rely on activities or things that made sense in the past. We have to look to the future, knowing that we as educators have to change. We have to look to the future knowing that what we're teaching right now may not be important. It really has to be how that's going to be able to be used by this person in the future. And I think the last thing is that as we teach to touch the future, we realize that it is a noble profession. Be the change you want to see is one of the sayings that is out there. But we are building the society and the culture that is going to take this country forward. So to end talking about our mission statements, I just ask you to, one, remember them, and then to use them in your everyday work, because mission statements or philosophy statements, they can be pasted on a wall and they don't mean anything. But if we care for each person every day, and we focus on learning, and we teach to touch the future, we're going to continue to be a system that has outstanding results. And it's not only the academic results, and it's not only the athletic banners that we bring in, but we're going to produce great students, and we're going to produce people who are going to make a difference in this world. Bow and Dunbarton are two districts that have excellent reputations for good schools, and it's because of the people we have in those schools. It's the people who take our mission statement and make it come alive. And so I'd ask you to keep that in mind as you continue to be part of our district. Thank you for your work.